funny, Abdul Mateen. You're welcome, you're welcome. How long are you going to be here? Leaving tomorrow. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi amma ba'd. I want to mention a few more things about Suratul Al-Fatiha and the virtues of Suratul Al-Fatiha, because there's a lot to deal with concerning Suratul Al-Fatiha. And some of these issues are not known by us. So we just want to make sure everybody walks away with a greater appreciation, inshallah, for the virtues of the surah and the importance of the surah, and the role that it plays in the everyday life of the Muslim, in the deen. And from what we didn't mention, and it's an important principle in the deen that we have to always remember, not only as it relates to Surat Al-Fatiha, but all other issues similar to it, is that if something was important to the Arabs in Al-Jahiliyyah, then the Arabs used to give that thing many names, which was a sign and indication that they looked at this thing as being important. So you will find many names in Jahiliyyah before Rasulullah came, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, where the Arabs were given a lot of names to things like the lion, because of the role that the lion played in their minds and in their society. The sword had a lot of names because of the role that the sword played in their society, chivalry, manliness, so forth and so on. So if a thing had many names, it was a sign that that thing was important. We don't have that in the English culture or language. We have synonyms, words that are spelt differently and they mean the same thing, but you're not going to find a lot of words like that. You won't find a lot. The Arabs had hundreds of words for one particular issue. And again, one of the reasons for that was that thing that they gave all those names to, it was important. So Surah Al-Fatiha is like that. It has a lot of names. Mecca has that. A lot of names that is called in the Quran. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam has that. A lot of names. So a person came to Al-Medina for the first time, and they started hearing the people call Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They would call him, for an example, Ahmed, Muhammad, Abu Qasim, Ashir. He had a lot of names. The people would hear all those names and they would say, if it was possible, that they didn't know what was going on, which was impossible. But if they just heard all of those names, they said, this person is important in society. Same issue with the Quran and many issues in the deen, like Yawm al-Qiyamah. For almost every harf of the alphabet, alif, ba, ta, tha, jim, ha, kha, dal, dal, for every harf of the huruf of the Arabic language, almost everyone has a name for Yawm al-Qiyamah. Almost every single one of them, almost everyone. Yawm al-Akhir, Yawm al-Ba'ath, Yawm al-Taghabun, Yawm al-Jam', Yawm al-Hashr, Yawm al-Khulud, Yawm al-Din, Yawm al-Qiyam, just almost all of those. So that's Allah Azza wa Jalla showing the Arabs, this is from your culture. You better pay attention, Abu Lahab, Abu Jahl. Yawm al-Qiyam is serious with Allah Azza wa Jalla. Because look at all these names. So Surah Al-Fatiha is like that. It has a lot of names. It's called Al-Fatiha because it's the opening and the beginning of the book, although it's not the first surah that was revealed, but it's the beginning of the book. It is also called, like the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ar-Ruqya. He said, how do you know that that was a surah? That is a Ruqya. It is called Ash-Shafiyah, the thing that gives you well, inshallah, from Shifa. is called Kitab. Kitab. It's called As-Salat. In the Hadith al-Qudsi, Allah said, Qasamtu salat bayni wa bayna abdi. I divided the salat between my slave and myself. If my slave says Alhamdulillah, so the scholar said, one of the names of Surah Al-Fatiha is As-Salat. Surah Al-Hamd has a lot of names, What is that a proof of and an indication? That's an indication of the importance of the surah in the deen, in the mind of the ummah, the religion that the Prophet brought, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as we mentioned today as well, it's the 7 oft repeated verses, the Sabr al-Mathani. Why is it called that? Because you're going to pray with it in every single prayer, no matter what that prayer is. It can be a prayer that is wajib or it's not wajib. It could be a prayer that has a ruku' and a sajda, or doesn't have ruku' or sajda. It could be a prayer, whatever. You're going to read Surah Al-Fatiha in it. Not only that, it's the 7 oft repeated verses because you read it in every single rak'ah. Every single rak'ah. So it has many names. From the importance and the virtues of Surah Al-Fatiha, and this is really important, is that Surah Al-Fatiha is a rukn from the arkan of a salat. This prayer that we just prayed, it has arkan, pillars. It has wajibat. It has sunnahs. So you don't necessarily have to do raf'ul yadayn. That's not wajib. It's not a rukun. Nah. It's highly recommended and you should do it. And when people don't do raf'ul yadayn, we shouldn't get bent out of shape because that's their madhab. They should do it because this is what the Prophet did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But it's from the sunnah. As for the rukun and the wajibat, if a person does not come with the rukun, whether he did it intentionally, whether he didn't come with it out of forgetfulness, whether he didn't do it because he was ignorant, it destroys his prayer. He doesn't have a prayer. So if he doesn't read Surah Al-Fatiha intentionally, he doesn't have a prayer. Whereas the wajibat, if you forget or you didn't know, for an example, you forgot, you didn't do it, you can correct that by making the sajdat as-sahw. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in 2 hadith I want to share with you, he said to one of the ulama of the companions who used to lead the prayer after his death, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and during the time of Abu Bakr and during the khilafah of Umar especially, he used to lead the prayer, especially in the Ramadan. And that was Ubay ibn Ka'b, Abu al-Mundhir, Ubay ibn Ka'b, who was from the ulama of the Quran, that the Prophet told all of the companions, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, learn the Quran from 4 companions. The first one he mentioned was Ubay. He was a scholar. Ubay, may Allah Azza wa Jal be pleased with him, came to the masjid one time and pulled someone who was in the first row behind the imam out and pushed him back and got in his place. And the person was upset. After the prayer was over, he said, "You may be upset with me." He said, "Yes." Ubay said, "This is what I did. It's what I heard the Prophet say, that those who have knowledge and the elders should be behind him." And he felt it was his responsibility, because what he knew of the Quran, to pray behind the imam. I don't say anybody should do that. None of us should do that. But it shows his position. Anyway, in Ramadan, Ubay used to lead the salat during the khilafah of Umar. Ubay was asked by the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Ya Ubay, when you pray, what do you read?" Ubay said, "I read with Al-Fatiha." The Prophet said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Walladhi nafsi biyadihi ma unzilat fi Torah wala al-Injil wala al-Zubur wala al-Furqan mithluha wa innaha hiya سبع من المثاني والقرآن العظيم الذي أعطيته." He told them, "I swear by Allah, this Fatiha was not revealed in any of those other books, like the angel who came. It wasn't revealed in the Torah, in the Injil, in the Zabur, and it wasn't revealed in the Furqan, the Quran itself, any other surah like that. So you got to remember that. Surat Al-Fatiha is a rukn from the arkan of the salah. There's a hadith where the Prophet also says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, la salata liman lam yaqra fatihat al-kitab. There is no prayer for the one who doesn't read Surat Al-Fatiha. You don't have a prayer. But what's the meaning of that? The meaning of that is if you intentionally don't read Surat Al-Fatiha, that prayer doesn't count at all. It doesn't count. Doesn't count. Now, some of the scholars said, if you just read Al-Fatiha and you didn't read a surah after that, you left off something that is wajib, but your prayer still counts. Because he told the man who made a mistake in his salat, then you read what is easy for you. Make a good wudu, face a qibla, say Allahu Akbar, and then you read what is easy for you. And this other hadith said you have to read Surah Al-Fatiha. They said that Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, said that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam woke up for Salatul Fajr and he made the 2 sunnahs of Al-Fajr. She said, in the house, he prayed 2 rak'ah and it seemed like he only read Al-Fatiha. That's how short it was and that's how quick it was. She said she doesn't think that he read more than Surah Al-Fatiha in both of those rak'at. He made those 2 rak'at. She said then he laid on his right side waiting, giving people time to come to the Masjid. So that's why you find in the books of fiqh, some of those scholars of Islam, and Imam Ahmed and other than him said that the sunnah for Al-Fajr, those 2 rak'ats, is permissible for you just to pray Surah Al-Fatiha in the rak'at. From the virtues of this, and that's very, very important as well, is the great scholar of Islam, Ibn al-Qayyim. He mentioned that Surah Al-Fatiha is, in and of itself, an answer to the dua of the believer, and it's also a cure in and of itself. It's the answer of the dua. The dua is the fact that at the end of it, we say Ameen. And I have to say this, I think this is one of the best masjids where I've been, where when the normal people who come to the masjid, you people yourself, when the imam says, وَلَضَّالِينَ, this masjid waits for the imam to say Ameen better than any masjid that I've been in a long time. Usually when we get new people and the Jumu'ah crowd, we get them saying it with the imam, before the imam. But the general musallin like yourselves, and that's why we have to, inshallah, when we make this, everybody has to say it. So that when people come, they can catch on and they can see. It's part of the educational process. So, Surah Al-Fatiha is a dua. Not only is it a dua, but it shows the etiquettes of how to make dua. The etiquettes. If you look at Surah Al-Fatiha, it teaches you how to make dua. Now is not the time for that, because that's another lecture all unto itself. We're asking Allah, guide us with hidayah. Don't be angry with us. Iyaka na'bud wa iyaka nasta'een. Don't send us the way those Jews went, the Yahud, and don't send us the way that the Christians. And the dua for hidayah is tremendous. Every day people are asking for that. Sons and daughters of Adam constantly are making mistakes. So we constantly need dua from Allah. And here we have an embedded thing in our religion, divinely there to give you, inshallah, and sustain you with permanent dua. He said it is the cure as well. It's really important. It's a cure because Abu Sa'id al-Khudri did the ruqya and it cured that man, bi-idhnillah, who had poison in him. And also, there was a dua. We kind of referred to it, one of those lessons last week. One of those lessons when we talked about the names of Allah, that Allah has more than 99 names. There are some names that he kept with himself. In that dua, he taught us to ask Allah Ta'ala, وَتَجْعَلَ الْقُرْآنَ رَبِيعَ قَلْبِي وَنُورَ صَدْرِي وَجَلَاءَ حُزْنِي وَذَهَابَ غَمِّي وَهَمِّي. Oh Allah, make the Quran the spring of my heart, the Rabi'. Make it have sakina, make it pure. Don't make it a heart that's overwhelmed with wiswas, not liking people, looking down on people, being negative, being suspicious. Don't make my heart like that. Make it the Rabi', the spring of my heart. And make it the nur of my chest. The chest and the heart is the central nervous system in Islam. We think here, we feel here. He said, and make the Quran the jala of my huzn. I'm sad for whatever reason. I received a message today, may Allah make it easy, about a news article, a video of the news where they were reporting a 3-year-old child was hit and run over by a car while riding a bike. I said, how was a kid riding a bike at 3 years old? And why is my friend putting it in our group? So I didn't pay attention to it. When I came back to it, I saw it was an Arab brother somewhere here in Florida. His child was run over by a car. When I thought about that, musibah to him, I don't know if I could do the khutbah. I don't know if I would be able to do the khutbah. Only Allah knows that man's huzn. Only Allah knows. That is something that if it happens to a person can make you lose your mind. Make the Quran the thing that causes my sorrow and my sadness to go away. Lost his mother, lost his father. He lost something. And huzn is a part of the dunya. And he said, and make the Quran as well, make it the thing that takes away my hum wa gham, my worries. What is hum and gham? And gham? Anxiety? It's a kind of worry, but anxiety. All of those things that bother me. All of those. And I look in the audience, everybody has that. Everybody has that. She has to travel, inshallah, to her country, and she has her baby, and she has anxiety about how the baby is going to act up on the plane. You're going to take a trip, and you have a baby who is a harakiya. Your baby won't sit still. When you get on that plane, your flight is not until next week, inshallah. But just thinking about how your baby is going to act on that plane gives you anxiety. And no matter what anybody tell you, don't worry about it. Allah make it easy. Don't worry about it. That doesn't calm people down. Gonna have a visitor who's going to come, the mother-in-law, who is not the easiest person to get on with, because in her heart, she has all this stuff. You're no good. You're not. She should have stayed with her first husband. You don't do enough. He doesn't want to deal with that. So he has anxiety about an appointment, about a job interview. He said that the Quran will take that stuff away. It's a cure. It's just up to us to spend time with the Quran and not to be of those people who we do the hocus pocus approach. When the problem comes, now we go to the Quran looking for answers. Literal answers by opening up the page and putting your finger there, or by just reading and you think it. No, we have to make the Quran a part of who we are. Listen to what Uthman ibn Affan said. Uthman is the Dhul Nurayn, the possessor of the two lights, because he was married to two daughters of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He told the people who were the tabi'een, he told the people, if your hearts, the tabi'een, if your hearts were pure, pure, P-U-R-E, lamma shabi'at min kalamillah. If our hearts were pure, we would have never became bored with the kalam of Allah. Why don't you do certain things? I don't do that because it's boring. what my kid always tell me. Come on, we're going to go play soccer with these kids. He says, it's boring. Everything with you is boring, brother. It's boring. So we don't want to do it because it's boring. Why we don't go to the Quran? I'm not putting anybody down. This is just the time we're living in. He said, if the people's hearts were pure, we would never get enough of it, never be bored with reading the Quran, studying the Quran, memorizing the Quran, teaching the Quran, doing what was necessary to keep the Quran alive in our lives. So as it relates to the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, there are a number of issues. Listen, ikhwan, I think this is really important. This is why I want to mention this to you. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim said that the Quran was a shifa for our diseases, mental diseases, physical, spiritual. Those mental diseases, like a person who's on the spectrum, ADHD, I don't know if they classify that as a mental illness. I don't know. You know, ADHD, bipolar, schizophrenia. And I'm saying if a person has schizophrenia, you shouldn't take medications. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Schizophrenia is serious. People can harm you if they have schizophrenia. I'm not saying only give him the Quran. He may need something to get those chemicals balanced in him. But those things people have, depression, the Quran takes that stuff away. Being afraid unnecessarily. And it is a guide. Listen to this ayah. Listen to this ayah that's in the Quran where Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, يَوْمَ يَبْعَثُهُمُ اللَّهُ جَمِيعًا فَيَحْلِفُونَ لَهُ كَمَا يَحْلِفُونَ لَكُمْ وَيَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ عَلَى الشَّيْءِ أَلَا إِنَّهُمْ هُمُ الْكَاذِبُونَ. I read it again about hidayah, being guided aright. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. The Anbiya, the prophets, the messengers, the Siddiqeen, the Shuhada, the religious people. Don't let us go astray. Those you're angry with, the Yahud, or those people who are astray, the Christians. We want Al-Hidayah. Allah described a group of people in this ayah. Suratul Al-Fatiha. يوم يبعثهم الله جميعا فيحلفون له كما يحلفون لكم ويحسبون أنهم على الشيء ألا إنهم هم الكاذبون. Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah will raise all of the people up, all of them. He will raise everyone up. And then the criminals, the disbelievers, people who are astray, they're going to swear to Allah just as they swore to you people. Wallahi, we love Allah. Wallahi, we are the sons of Allah. Wallahi, we're this. Wallahi, wallahi. They're going to swear to Allah the same way that they swore to you, which is a great sign of being astray. Allah went to say, they think that they are on something, but they're on nothing. Really, those people are just lying. I'm telling you this. All of us, inshallah, including these women who are here, all of us believe that we are on the Sunnah. We are on the way of the Salaf of this Ummah. In the years that I've been on this dawah, and I ask Allah Ta'ala, because Kamal is only for him and to him, the years that I've been on this dawah, I'm not talking about the different groups that are other stuff. I'm talking about people who claim that they are on the Sunnah. They think that they're on the Sunnah, and they really believe that they're on the Sunnah. But what they're doing is not the Sunnah. I've seen people who have a steady diet of just making takfir of the Muslims. As easy as it is to drink water, and they believe that they're religious. And they understand wala wa bara. And they have hirs and seriousness. And they're on the jadda. So if the people of the Sunnah, we know people were like that, they think the Sunnah is, if you don't take what I take and see it the way I see it, you're wrong and I'm right. And he can't support what he's saying. He's just a parrot repeating things that he heard. If you sat with him, just you and him, he wouldn't be able to defend what he's saying. He's just parroting off. What kind of hidayah is that? Suratul Al-Fatiha, when we get to that part, whether we're reading it ourselves or we're behind someone who reads it, we shouldn't say Ameen just to say Ameen. We should be really thinking and trying to put our hearts and our minds on that issue. Guide us to the straight way. Don't make us of those people who they think that they're on something, but they're not on anything. Like the vast majority of the people today, from these Christians and these Yahud and other than them. From this hadith, from what we benefit from the hadith that I want to share with you, brothers, is the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, may Allah be pleased with him, is a clear proof and indication that ruqya of the Quran can work on non-Muslims. The ruqya of the Quran can work on non-Muslims. And if you ever had the opportunity to visit or to know intimately and closely someone who's sick, like the Sayyid that got stung, bitten, he was dying. He was dying. So they were willing to give all of those sheep because they're trying to save the man. I saw a thing out of the UK. The UK has this problem of knife crimes. A lot of the Muslims are involved in knife crimes. The thing that was sent to me is said on X, the uncle saves a brother from being killed. 3 people in the uncle's car, Somali man, taxi driver, and he was a jovial guy. He was telling them, where's my tip, where's my tip? When those 3 got out of the car, their ops was wherever they got out of the car, and they all ran this way and that way they ran. One of them ran back to the car and got in the car and told the uncle, Uncle, drive, Uncle, drive. He didn't know what was going on. He just sat there. People were trying to stab him in London. May Allah protect the Muslims in London. This is a Muslim kid. They bust the window from both sides and he started trying to stab him. I thought they were stabbing him. And he kept saying, Uncle, drive, trying to get like this, Uncle, drive. The Somali man, he didn't move. I think because he was shocked, he was probably thinking, who's going to pay for my windows? But someone else would have known, hey man, you better get out of here because they're going to stab this boy. He may even stab you. I looked at it and I wrote back to the brothers. I said, I don't see the Somali uncle as a hero. He took too long to move, man. He took a long time. The point is, he finally moved. He finally moved. The uncle who was driving, he said, oh, I can't believe it. Who's going to pay for my window? Who's going to pay for my window? The brother was so happy because he thought he was stabbed up. He was looking. He had a cut, but he couldn't believe it. I'll send it to you, brothers. I couldn't believe it. He was looking. He said, I'll pay for it, Uncle. I'll pay for it. He took his money out and just started giving him money. He gave him a lot of money. Why did he give him all that money? Because he just escaped death by the skin of his teeth, bi'idhnillah. And I hope that young boy hear these words, or somebody knows him who hear these words, and he gets himself together. Because that street life, that crime life, it has no love for you. The streets have no love for you. And over there in the UK, brothers, it's just a terrible state of affairs. So as it relates to the issue of ar-ruqya of the Quran, if you know someone who is a non-Muslim, your relative, he's in the hospital with your relative, people don't want to die, brother. If you say to them, let me give you some Islamic medicine, and you read the ruqya, you read the Quran on them, that can cure that person bi'idhnillah. And if they got cured and they think you helped them to do it, that's da'wah Allah. Trust me. Trust me. We shouldn't be people who are we're not sociable, afraid to talk to people. People have all kinds of issues going on. And we have the nur, the light and the hidayah that will give them light. And from that is the ruqya. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استجيبوا لله وللرسول إذا دعاكم لما يحييكم Obey the call, the invitation of Allah and His Messenger when they invite you to that which will give you life. The Quran as a ruqya can give us life and other people life. So I'm going to stop here, my brothers. Inshallah, if you brothers have any questions, you could put your questions forward concerning the khutbah today or what we said here. Bi'idhnillah.
Evidences of we are working on non-Muslim.
Not that I can remember, but what I do know is when I was in Al-Medina, I lived in an imara, in a building that belonged to the university. It belonged to a man from Medina, but the university made it jar and rented it for us. And we were 8 students. There was a student who was African American, who had been married to his wife for a lot of years. I don't know how many. And many of you know this person. His name is Dawood Adib. His wife was Aqil. She never got pregnant. She never had a baby. And they had been married for donkey years, as they say in the UK. When he came to Al-Medina and he started to increase the consumption of Zamzam water and this type of ruqya, she came with her only baby. She was a mature woman. That's something I know. That's not something I heard. That's something I saw and I witnessed with my own eyes. As for a non-Muslim myself, nah, I don't know anyone that I saw or know myself, but Sahih Bukhari, kafa bina tawdiha. The hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri is in Sahih Bukhari. So it's like I saw it. It's like I know those people because that hadith is thabit, but I don't know necessarily. Any more questions? Tafadhal ya Mudir Al-Kareem.
Can you make a ruqya on the phone on somebody who's away?
Can you make the ruqya on the phone to someone who's away? Allahu Alam. I wouldn't be comfortable with that. Allahu Alam. I'm not saying yes or no. I will have to find out what scholar said that before me and what's the da'i for that. What's the need for that? Especially when Suratul Al-Fatiha, everyone knows it. It is the surah of the Quran that everybody here knows. I got a call from the UK recently asking me, do I know anyone in Birmingham who is a good Raqi? I said, why you want to pay money for Raqi when you more than anyone wants your sick relative to become cured? The Raqi just this is his job. Some of them are sincere and serious, and some of them not. You do the ruqya on the person yourself. So doing the ruqya on the phone and someone is in another place, I can see how the answer could be yes, because he's reading the Quran in real time. He's reading the Quran in real time, and he's utilizing technology the same way we're utilizing technology with this thing. But I can also see the other side of it, which is if we open up that door, then we'll become mutafannineen with the ruqya. It becomes something that we won't recognize at some time. So inshallah, we'll look up that. We'll look up that. See who preceded us in giving that particular position, that fatwa. Yes or no? So I'm mutawaqqif. Abu al-Harith al-Iraqi.
Some people in the back home used to do, I mean, their intention is ruqya, but what they do is like a piece of paper, they write dua or maybe a verse from the Quran. They just hold it and or maybe they, holding it. Is that form of ruqya?
The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam didn't write on papers and things like that, but there are some narrations that some of his companions did that, like Jundub. He made the ruqya and put it on paper, and he did certain things. Some people made inkar of that and said it's not authentic. Some people said it is authentic. It's better to stay away from that because we have those other things that people are doing where a shirk and kufr are involved with what's written on those papers. But some of the Salaf is reported, and it is wided, that they did write on papers, and they allowed the drinking of, the paper that was in the ink, and the ink went into the water and things like that. That's thabit. But that's something I say we should try to stay away from that because it's not something that many of the Salaf did. And those who did that, people made inkar against them and said, we shouldn't do this. And Allah knows best. Abu Bakr. Good question, Akhi Abu Bakr. Before I forget, there were some kuffar in Jahiliyyah who used to do ruqya as well. And they were not Muslims, and they used to do ruqya. That was part of the culture of the Arabs. And one of the ways that they would seek the means and the ways to make people cure. There was a man, and if my memory serves me correctly, his name is Dhammad. With a dhamma, Dhammad ibn Tha'laba. And Khutbat al-Hajj, Inna alhamdulillah. He said, I heard in Medina, in Mecca, there was a man who had magic on him and he was a jinn. He said, when I go to Mecca, if I meet him, I'm going to do ruqya on him. So hopefully I can help him. And he went to the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam to do ruqya on Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Because he had the ability to do ruqya and people would get cured in Jahiliyyah. And he didn't do shirk and stuff like that. And then the Prophet told him, Khutbat al-Hajj, and he listened to it 3 times. And the man said, I've traveled all over. I know the magicians. I know the soothsayers. I know the poets. And these words that you said, Inna alhamdulillahi nahmadu, these are not the words of a madman or any of those magicians. And he accepted Islam based on that. Khutbat al-Hajj. Went back to his people. He wanted to give Rasulullah the bay'ah. Rasulullah said, what about your people? He said, I give the bay'ah for me and my people. And then he went back to his people and he told them about what had happened. All of them accepted al-Islam. His name is with a dog, Dhammad ibn Tha'laba. So in Jahiliyyah, people did ruqya. They knew ruqya. As for the ruqya with other than Suratul Al-Fatiha, Allahumma na'am. The ayat that we mentioned today was very clear. وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. The Quran is a shifa, but the Surah Al-Fatiha is unlike everything else. But ruqya is with the maw'adhatayn, right? Every time he would go to sleep, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he would read Ayatul Kursi, Qul huwallahu ahad, 3 times. The maw'adhatayn, 3 times. And he said, after that magic was put on him, he never did ruqya with anything better than that, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So you could do ruqya with anything of the Quran, Yasin, but not because it's necessarily special, but because it's the Quran, it's the Quran, it's the Quran. So I want to draw your attention, Ikhwani, back to another thing that we mentioned today. Like I said, everybody here has issues that we're suffering from. Everybody. We're some older brothers. We're older brothers. We have things that are going on. We have to do ruqya. Younger brothers. My brother, he's one of the youngest brothers here. His left knee, when I first came to this masjid in March, he had a brace on his left knee. Time went on, his knee got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. Do ruqya on your knee. Do ruqya on your knee. So that's the statement of Uthman. If our hearts were pure, we wouldn't have been tired of the Quran or bored. We would do ruqya on things before we start looking for big pharmaceutical to do it for us. A lot of that stuff is poison anyway. And Allah knows best. Allah knows best. Any more questions? Last question. Any more questions? Okay, and then naktafi bihadha al-qadr. Are we going to get some grub tonight? Maqluba? Mansif? What is the time for Maghrib? And Maghrib? Couscous and the other one. Tajin? What's on the menu today? Pizza. Okay. أكرمكم الله وسلمكم الله من كل سوء ومكروه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. You know, when I sit with you guys, I feel better.